Hey horror fans, once again it is me, the Horror Miser Monty G, and one of the things I'll be doing for the 31 days of Halloween is a Scream series. Yes, I'll be reviewing all four Scream movies. If you have noticed, I actually did a special collaboration with my good friend Vicky of Nightmare Maven. I'll leave a tag up there for you to watch that one. Actually, the Ghost of the Miser did that one. I thought it was very good. But one of the things I'll be doing is this one right here. So let's start off with the fantastic 1996 Scream. Now, Scream is a 1996 American slasher horror film. It was directed by the late great Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson. It stars Neve Campbell, David Arquette, Courtney Cox, Matthew Lillard, Rose McGowan, and Street Urchin. Now, the plot of this film is very easy. A year after a murder of her mother, a teenage girl is terrorized by a new killer who targets the girl and her friends by using horror films as part of a deadly game. Ooh. Now, I'm pretty sure by now mostly everyone has seen Scream. We know basically what the story is, so I want to actually review the movie itself. There's no need to go over that. We all know the story about how Scream opens up with that brilliant opening scene with Drew Barrymore as Casey, and she is first taunted, not taunted, but kind of relaxed with the ghost face killer as she talks about what she's doing, popping popcorn and watching horror movies, and eventually the call turns deadly, and he eventually kills her. And then after that, we see Sidney Prescott and her friends are stalked and terrorized by which would be known as the Ghostface Killer, which eventually we'll find out who's the killer or killers, the reason why the killers are being the plot of the killers, I'll get that right, and how it makes fun of slasher films. No, how I will talk about this movie is I'll talk about how it was created, how Kevin Williamson came up with the screenplay, how Wes Craven was brought into the project, how Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, and David Arquette, how they were cast, some other aspects of the film, and what did Scream did for the horror genre, most likely slashers in general, revitalized, oh boy, get those words messed up. How it actually brought back the slasher genre. Now, as we all know, back in the early '90s, horror was struggling, particularly slasher films. The Holy Trinity, or I should say, unholy Trinity, Freddy, Jason, and Michael were becoming outdated. None of their final films were not doing that well. It seems like everything was being phased out for those three, and we didn't have anything new coming on the horizon. There was no new horror icons that had the staying power of Freddy, Jason, and Michael. Yes, we had some success with Silence of the Lambs, Candyman, and Misery. Obviously Hannibal the Cannibal, Candyman with Tony Todd, and Misery with Kathy Bates. And those were actually pretty good, but nothing like the success that those horror icons back had in the 80s. We really didn't have anything really like the slasher films that came out during the 80s, and no real true horror icon. Yes, we had Chucky, we had Pinhead, but nothing like it seems like the slasher film was seeing its last days, and horror in general was really struggling to actually come up with something fantastic to bring back what we enjoyed in the 80s. As I said before, it seemed like the slasher subgenre was on its way out until the late great horror director and Freddy creator Wes Craven joined forces with a then young and talented screenwriter Kevin Wilson came together to create the meta horror slasher that became known as Scream. Now, according to some research I did, Williamson, I think, only had one particular script that he had written. It was called Teaching Mrs. Tingle, and eventually he decided to come up with this horror movie, which was originally titled Scary Movie. He based his killer on the real life serial killer Danny Rowling, who was known as the Gainesville Ripper, who murdered 5 college students back in August of 1990. Now, a horror movie lover himself, Williamson decided to have his characters have full knowledge of slasher films, its tropes, and its cliches. I think that's one of the success Scream have, is that the characters, even with Sidney and all the characters, Billy Loomis, Matthew Leonard, Jamie Kenney's character, Everyone, Stu, her friend, everyone was knowledgeable about the slasher tropes. People making dumb mistakes. Some of the things you don't do in slasher films. You don't drink and drive. You don't drink. You don't have sex. I think that's one of the things. What makes Scream a success is because Williamson decided to take the tropes and cliches that we see in slasher films and put this in his film, making the characters and, of course, the audience full aware of these tropes and poke fun at it. The opening scene is a great example, taking shots of when a stranger calls. It also sets the stage, let the audience know that they're in for a wild and crazy ride. Yes, you can't ever forget that opening scene in Scream. Now, Wes Craven's involvement with Scream is funny because at the time when Dimension Films first approached him about the project, he was really trying to distance himself away from the horror genre. Now, at the time, he was in the development of making the Harden, and he, at the time, was becoming tired of the misogyny and the inherent violence that comes with horror films. However, after learning that Drew Barrymore had been cast, and after the Haunting project fell through, Craven decided to direct the film. He was very happy. He says, wow, if an established star like Drew Barrymore, better known from the Charlie's Angels films, wanted to be in this project, he says, well, it must not be that bad. So I'll go ahead on and direct the film. Speaking about Drew Barrymore, she was actually originally cast to be Sidney Prescott, as the producers were surprised that she wanted to be in this project. Now, just imagine how different this series would be if Drew Barrymore did play Sydney. Yes, I know what you're thinking. Now, it would, not saying that she not would have pulled the role off, but in the more physical aspects of Sidney Prescott's character in the film, we would be thinking more of her as Dylan from Charlie's Angels and not actually Sidney Prescott. So that would have been the difference. I don't know if the film probably still would have been successful, but I don't know if Sidney Prescott's character would be as popular as she is now because of Drew Barrymore's performance in the film. During the physical aspects, I think we'd be thinking more of, oh no, she's being Dylan instead of being Sydney. So it was, that probably would not, I don't know if Scream would have been as popular as now if Drew Barrymore would have stayed as Sidney Prescott, but of course she did not. Now that was due to scheduling conflicts. She had to take the smaller role of Casey Becker, which actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise because the side effect of having this, or having a major star like Barrymore getting killed in the opening scene, no one in the cast would be safe from the Ghostface killer. I mean, come on now. When it's just like how in Deep Blue Sea, how Samuel L. Jackson's character in the middle of the film gets killed by the shark, and you're like, holy shit, he's dead. No one's safe. It's just how this part of the opening part of Scream, when you see Drew Barrymore's character getting killed, and she's a major star. So that means no one is safe. So you really got to give Williamson credit, how he wrote the script, and of course Wes Craven's how he directed that opening scene. It's really what pulls the audience in and really sets the stage of what's going to happen, because there is no telling who's going to die and who's going to live. So now that unfortunately Drew Barrymore could not be Sidney Prescott, they had to cast another actress. Now, while other actresses like Alicia Witt and Brittany Murphy auditioned for the role of Sidney, Wes Craven had seen Neve Campbell in the TV show Party of Five and asked her to audition for the role. He believed that not only that she had the innocent look he was looking for, he felt Campbell could also handle the physical and emotional demands of the role. And he was right. That just shows what a great eye Craven had. Courtney Cox, known for playing the nice Monica Geller on the TV sitcom Friends, she actually approached producers to play the bitch role of Gail Weathers, as she wanted to shed the image she was getting from Friends. You know how some actors or actresses are. They're known for this nice, kind role. I mean, you take a look at Denzel Washington. He was a great actor who should have been nominated a whole lot of times for Academy Awards for playing the roles he did, but it wasn't until he actually played the role in Training Day, where he was actually played a bad guy, and he wins an Oscar for it. That tends to happen. Now, it was that nice image that producers refused to cast her at first, but eventually she won them over, and she has become one of horror's favorite heroines. I think what I liked about the Gale character most because not because how Sydney grows throughout the films, but it's also you see how Gail Weathers' character has grown throughout the films. Yes, it takes a while for her to remove the grandiose or the greed or the non-caring factor that Gales has throughout the first few films, and then she eventually comes into the character that she is now. So you really have to give Courtney Cox credit and, of course, Kevin Williamson credit of how they let these two characters grow. Now, it's interesting how Street Urchin won the role of Billy Loomis, mainly because they actually did, I guess, because they worked well together in the craft. And so they decided that they teamed very well together, mainly because they said that Street Urge looks similar to like Johnny Depp's character in the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And plus, he and Nev Campbell had great chemistry in the craft, and they had great chemistry in this one. So he got cast as Billy Loomis, which is Sydney's boyfriend. And though he was asked to audition for the role of Billy Loomis, David Arquette asked and eventually won the role of Deputy Dwight Dewey Riley. Now, it's amazing looking back and seeing how Sidney Gale and Dewey have grown since Scream first came out in 1996. Obviously, Sidney is considered one of the horror's best final girls, and Gale and Dewey have become one of horror's favorite couples. Now, as I stated before, the Scream revitalized the slasher subgenre. The success of Scream goes to the witty script of Craven and the sharp direction of Wes Craven. The script doesn't hold back on the violence, and I love the mystery aspect of trying to find out who the killer is. It's that aspect of playing the tropes of slashers and trying to figure out who the killer is. Because we don't know who the killer is, he doesn't let on. There's subtle hints and there's between who could be the killer, who could not be the killer. But it's because of how the script was written by Williamson and how well it was directed by Craven. It's kind of like an adult full horror version of Scooby-Doo. Now, out of not just in horror films, but any type of film where you actually have good guys and bad guys, you really have to have a compelling villain. And what really brings the horror out of Scream is the Ghostface killer. Voice actor Roger L. Jackson is perfect as the voice of Ghostface. He gives Ghostface the fear, the scares, and the terror that a slasher film needs in its villain. He's not superhumanly strong like Jason or Michael, and although because he's probably one of the few that actually speaks like Chucky and Freddy, he does have his wit when he talks about some of the stuff when he kills them. But it's not just like Freddy does, but he talks when he does his quips, he does it in a very mean and frightful way. Unlike how Freddy can be a bit playful at times, almost like Arnold Schwarzenegger-esque when it comes to his puns. Ghostface does it, but he does it in a mean, more terrifying way as opposed to how Freddy does his quips. And that's the reason why Scream works is because of the Ghostface killer. Now, I'm sure no one, not even Williamson, Craven, or anyone at Dimension Films, knew the success Scream would bring, not only for the horror genre itself, but for films in general. It would eventually gross $173 million worldwide, becoming the highest grossing slasher film until Halloween 2018. Because of the success of Scream, the slasher horror genre, we found other film companies decided to do copycats because that's what they do. Just like when, after the success of Halloween and Friday the 13th, and eventually A Nightmare on Elm Street, we saw this huge craze of slasher films back in the 80s, and that's what Scream did here. We have something called Scream clones, such as I Know What You Did Last Summer, The Faculty, and Urban Legends. It got so successful that even the folks who owned the Halloween rights decided to come up with a kind of a Scream platform with Halloween H2O. You could actually consider that a Scream clone. And not only that, Ghostface has become one of horror's top iconic slashers right next to Jason, Freddy, Michael, Chucky, and Pinhead. It is now going on to spawn 4 sequels because Scream 5 is coming out in 2022, tons of Halloween merchandise, and of course the TV show. There is no telling where the horror genre would be if Scream was not created. So overall, thanks to a witty script, poking fun at horror cliches and tropes, and still having the violence and gore that comes with slashers, Scream is a treat to watch not just for horror fans, but for non-horror fans too. That's when you really think a horror movie such as Scream can do, is when it can not only make horror fans such as myself happy, but even non-horror fans actually enjoy this film. So that means that really tells you what a great job that Kevin Williamson did along with Wes Craven. Now, Kevin Williamson went on to go on to write the teen angst drama Dawson's Creek, where we all know what a great success the late great Wes Craven have in the film. We have both Nev Campbell, Courtney Cox, and David Arquette. They went on to have great careers. They're recognizable all throughout the world. It's fascinating to see what this movie has done for the horror genre and for film in general. I really appreciate what they've done. And if I were to rank Scream, I am going to give Scream 5. Yes, 5 out of my 5 bloody gold coins. That's how great Scream was. Very rarely do I actually give a film all of my 5 bloody gold coins, but yes, it deserves it because of the impact, not because it's just a great horror movie itself, but the impact Scream has. It's like if you were to generate this as probably one of your favorite horror films. I know my good friend Vicky, Lizzie from Carnage Candy, and I believe Girly Girl, Felicia, they all consider Scream their favorite horror movies, just like I consider The Exorcist, and you see how that film did for horror films. It's right up there with people's favorite or top horror films. So there you have it. That is my review of Scream. Next will be coming up Scream 2. Hopefully have that up soon. What do you think about Scream when you first saw it? Did you really like the film? What was your expectations before you actually saw the film with Scream? Did you thought, oh, well, here we go, another horror movie. Wow. And what do you think after you saw the movie? Leave your comments on the comment section below and tell me what you thought about Scream. And that's my video for today, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. Thank you very much for watching. If you did like it, please give it a like and share. And also, if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. That way you'll be notified anytime when I put up new videos such as this one. Once again, my name is Lamont Smith, better known as the Horror Miser Monty G. And always remember, horror rules. I'll see you in my next video. I'm out.